Okay, 6:59. There you go. Can everyone hear us all right?
Yep, loud and clear.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks,
we're
Dan.
gonna Call this meeting of the short-term rental committee to order at 7:02 PM. Looks like all members are present. So let's go to minutes of the previous meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of the previous meeting? Any corrections or omissions?
No, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous vote in favor. Okay, let's move on. All right, so let's kind of pick up where we left off last. Through some paperwork. This was originally from Lexington. And we were kind of counting it down and making changes, and we have our own cut sheets that we were pulling down and making changes to. And then we seem to have stalled out when the issue of accessory uses was brought up. So let's pick up the conversation at that point.
Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
I have taken everything out of the working draft and put it into a first draft. 90% of which I'm confident as far as we talked about it. There are a few items that I'm not absolutely certain that we talked about, and I put them in italics.
Go ahead.
I have also put a couple of other things in bold that seem to me need to be addressed further, but anybody It's a copy of what that looks like. This is a little easier on the eye. Much less busy than the Excel worksheet that I had. So, and wanted to do this basically and hold it up next to the Lexington form that you brought to us a couple of weeks ago, and we've talked about. Where I also have some questions after reviewing the meeting, whether or not a few things were approved. So it's not an easy transfer, let's say.
Go ahead.
So anyway, you should have them both in front of you now. I'm assuming that everybody has a copy of the Lexington thing that Steve sent out to everybody. Which one do we want to go with, or which one do we want to go first? What would be the?
I don't think it makes that much of a difference, Rob, so whichever.
Why don't we go to ours,
Okay,
right?
all right, let's stick with ours. We have been through what is pretty much the first couple of pages at least once, and probably two, maybe even three times. One of the things that we need to get resolved, as Wayne mentioned, is at the bottom of the first page, where we see that in this case, Cambridge, which is what this is a template that this is based on, only lists only operator occupied short-term rentals and owner adjacent short-term rentals are permitted. So we've got to talk about that, because I know there is a preference at the table as far as also having non-occupied rentals included in the Nahant. Second page. Once again, on the top, Cambridge saying that operator occupied short-term rentals is listed as their only option. Third page. I had a section called annual notice to abutters. And I remember talking about it, but I can't remember what we decided on. So.
We decided anything.
No,
Just
I
talked
know we,
about it.
correct.
So, do we want this or not?
I'm not sure, I'm not sure we need an annual notice to an abutter. I think certainly at the beginning of any registration process, there should be some kind of a notice to abutters,
Okay,
but I don't know if it's. So, because we haven't decided at this point whether or not this so-called registration that we've been discussing all along is going to be an annual thing or maybe longer. So I would think at registration as opposed to annual.
okay,
And then that will just flow with whatever the registration.
okay,
I think that's a better way to handle it as opposed to making an annual requirement.
Yeah,
Because it's gonna be something that. How are we gonna know if this is even being done? I mean, how are we gonna
Well,
verify?
it becomes a violation at the other end if there's ever a complaint filed.
I guess.
It says we never got.
But I guess
it's sort of.
You know, I mean,
Yeah,
and it's one of
so-
those things that's gonna be tough to enforce.
Yeah,
and
It's-
plus it depends on, do you really have to receive a notice, or does the notice really need to be only sent, right? From legal purposes, Dan, I'm sure can comment on that. When is the notice presumed to be delivered? When you mail it and the letter is stamped, or when you actually receive it? So,
And then you could start going into,
Yeah.
it has to be, registered mail, certified mail,
Right.
or whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
you
you go
can
into
get
rabbit
carried,
holes.
I get it, that's what I'm saying.
okay,
But
why don't we say that the notice of to abutters is required within 30 days of the registration? And then ask Dan what is the appropriate way to make sure.
I'm sure
that-
we can fine tune that at some
Yeah,
point.
fine tune it, yeah.
Right? So
I
Everyone
think it's a
agree
good
with that?
idea.
Is that
Yeah.
what everyone?
So what do you guys think? Do you think it's a good idea or not necessary, unnecessary? So I think
Well,
personally,
I guess
it may help if people know who these owners are if there is a problem, right? So let's say,
right, exactly, something on that idea, should, because if we know we've had complaints from people who say, I can't get a hold of this,
right,
or they blocked me and all this kind of info, you know.
yeah,
So if it's clearly listed on a notice that this is the number you need to call if you have an issue.
yeah, this is the owner of the
That's the way.
property or the operator,
Whoever it is
whatever,
that's gonna
caretaker,
respond to
whatever it is, yeah, yeah.
that should be clearly
Mhm.
on this notice, that's what should be on the notice, okay?
I don't
It's
think
up-
it's a big deal.
It's already part of the state housing code that that any non-owner occupied dwelling must have a sign, minimum 20 inches square, within plain view, typically by a mailbox, but could be other places. And that's what we're going by.
Oh, that's right, condo buildings have that, because they have a sign of the management company, right? So if you
Right,
want,
yeah, right as you come in the
That's-
front door.
That's
Mhm.
because I said it's required.
yeah,
And anybody running property, managing property, owning property, who reads the state housing code sees
But
that section.
doesn't that only apply to multifamily dwelling?
No,
Any non-occupied, any non-owner occupied structure, even if it's a single family home.
that's the code.
Never one, seen one on
That's-
anything other than a big
Of
apartment.
course not. Of course not.
All right, so let's assume that nobody knows about that,
Well,
and we're gonna tell them what to do.
We have three houses too,
we're
so-
going to tell them what to do because
Well, we can
the
do
code
that.
says,
We can quote the code or not, put that in whatever parentheses, the code. When we say it, but what I'm saying is, nobody's gonna just say, oh, it's the code, I'm gonna do it, because nobody does it now.
well, nobody does it now. It is done. And sometimes it's not.
I would love to see one. No, I'm saying, I
condo
got.
buildings do that,
Catch me.
yeah.
Yeah, oh, no,
Not just condo buildings.
Right, but
The name?
No,
I've seen it on buildings in
Well,
land.
yeah, you,
I buy it, they'll say, this building managed by,
Managed by the.
blah, 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 with the tells. I always thought of it as just like who to call if you're looking for an apartment
no,
signage, but I guess obviously
for-
it's the signage that.
it's for primarily public safety.
But it never, I mean, certainly there's a bunch of single family homes that are being rented
It's
that
not
often
getting hung
do
up
not even think about that.
On where it's not used and where it's not an issue when it's not used. It's enforced when it's clearly a multi-unit dwelling. And it could be used effectively here in this situation, since it is in the code already.
And we've embraced the code
Yes,
already, so technically,
So technically, you're supposed
It's
to do
already
it, if
there.
you say.
So we'll just put a thing per. Whatever,
Per housing
over
code.
this,
Photo,
then
right?
this should be a part of it.
So,
It still should get written into our group of a list of those.
so I read
Very.
in the window regulations that if you're renting a short-term rental, there needs to be a sign in front of your house so that your guests can find the house easily.
you see that all over the Cape also.
You do?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
Well,
some
again,
towns
that's-
require that. I don't. think we
They
need
actually
to
have a sign as far as what the down the Cape, the management companies on most of them, I think, and they have it right on the mailbox before you even drive up the driveway.
Mhm. All right, so everybody okay with the notice to abutters?
Okay, so that is going into the notice to abutters. But that's not a yearly thing, that, is it?
No, but
No.
the registration, right?
It's on the registration only. All right.
I agree.
Yeah, I
agree.
I think that's.
Well, we haven't decided what the registration is gonna be yet, so let's just say at registration or renewal,
Mhm.
that will, the notice. will go out. And if the registration is a 2-year thing, then that's when the notice.
Okay,
will-
registration or renewal.
And then what you can also do, if people really want to confirm this was done, is that you submit the notice to your neighbors with the registration application. Right, so you can also say, if you're submitting a registration application, the notice that you actually emailed or mailed to your abutters needs to be attached.
It's not a bad idea, but
But again, I
we
don't
were
know how much
within
you
30
wanna go
days.
with this, yeah.
No. Sure that, well, again, so that kind of circles us around to notification of the butters. And then on the concept of the registration process itself. I would like to think that if someone's gonna register a building, that all the neighbors should be notified of this registration process.
I think that's fair. And you're giving them contact information at the same time.
Yeah,
Piece on that. Next page, registration penalties, actually just about everything from here forward. I don't believe we talked about. Starting with registration penalties.
didn't we say there is a penalty in the zoning bylaws? If you don't comply with the zoning bylaws, there's a penalty for non-compliance.
Well, this is for registration penalties, so this is focused on the failure of the operator to register a property,
Oh,
et cetera, et cetera. I'm gonna read this in just for people listening, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me, registration penalties, failure of an operator to register a property prior to such property being offered for short-term residential rental shall subject the violator to a civil fine in the amount of $300 per day for each property rented in violation of this provision, such amount to be assessed by the Division of Inspectional Services, I guess. The director may waive such penalty at the discretion. They're calling it director. We've got to find out who that director is going to be here. Discretion of the director, if said violation is a result of mistake or excusable neglect, an operator who fails to pay such fine without receiving a waiver shall be prohibited from offering such property for rental unit until such fine is paid. Upon repeated violations of this section, an operator shall be prohibited from registering and offering a property as a short-term rental. Such prohibition for good cause shown may be appealed to the director of inspectional services. Section D, change in operator status. If an operator offering a registered residential unit ceases to be a primary resident of the unit or a primary resident of the dwelling, so we've got an issue there, in which the unit or units offered as a short-term rental are contained, such operator shall immediately notify the Director of Inspectional Services to remove the unit from the short-term rental registry. Re-registration upon unit turnover. A registration shall be tied to both the residential unit and the operator and will not automatically transfer upon the sale of the unit. New operators are responsible for ensuring that they re-register a unit with the Division of Inspectional Services if they wish to continue offering a unit as a short-term rental.
Yeah, I'm sure we can tweak that a little bit,
I can simplify this whole thing.
but
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense to have something like that in there.
I don't know if $300 per day is.
Well, that's the
Too much.
standard zoning
Is it?
violation.
Yeah. That's what we have now. It's fine.
Yeah.
I've seen the size of that.
Mhm. Oh,
So
the
I
one
mean,
thing I
again, I
don't
think we
like is
need
the
to-
mistake or excusable neglect. That leaves opportunity for different treatment of different individuals. So I would say you either register or you don't. If you make a mistake, well, you know, pay your fine and move
I
on.
think that touches on like what Wayne mentioned last week, if someone applies and Wayne is unavailable to get back to the application, his unavailability won't hold up
Yeah,
that,
Mhm.
yeah.
oh, yeah,
I think it's
okay,
pretty-
That's how I read it also, that
Yeah,
it's
okay.
basically back on the division.
yeah, okay. In that case, that makes sense to me.
I think the only thing in question is the operator. Primary residence.
Why don't we just say operator? Or the homeowner? And move on. This way, we don't need to worry about it in this section, and then discuss it when we decide who can own short-term rentals, right?
Right, which line is that in on? I'm just.
It starts, it's like 7 sentences down. It starts at if an operator and it runs
Oh,
through short-term rental registry period.
This whole sentence, if an operator offering a registered rental ceases to be a primary resident. That line there, I don't think we need that line at all.
I think it's that one long sentence that then references
Right.
laws.
Yeah, no, I don't think we need that in there. But the last line, I think, qualifies.
Mhm.
In other words, a short-term rental situation doesn't go with the house if you sell the house.
Yeah.
You start from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay, no nuisance. Short-term rentals shall not result in the disruption of the peace, tranquility, or safety of the immediate residential neighborhood through the production of noise, vibration, light, glare, trash, fumes, odors, traffic, parking congestion, or any other nuisance beyond that which normally occurs in the immediate residential area.
I think anyone has a problem with
I
that.
don't see that.
Maybe a good spot to add the commercial vehicle idling or
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
any food trucks and like that, commercial activities, parties.
Could that fall under the disruption of the peace, peace and tranquility?
But then it's
Through the
subject to
production of noise-
interpretation.
Yeah.
Through the production of noise, vibration, light.
Maybe if we said, I'm gonna jump half through it, like traffic, odor, traffic, parking congestion. Commercial activity, parties, commercial vehicles,
Mhm. Commercial events. Like weddings.
So as this parking congestion, we have commercial vehicles or commercial vehicles idling or vehicles idling.
I know, that's a funny one. I mean, a commercial, you could put a commercial plate on a Honda Accord.
Yeah,
Um,
Uber sitting there and.
how could
Other
we word
items.
that? Yeah, pretty much you can't have a limousine sitting out front for 20 minutes waiting to pick up a party.
Yeah,
Um,
or bus or something.
Do we have to say that when it's already in the law?
Well, if we already have zoning bylaw, I don't think we need to say that.
Well, didn't we discuss that last meeting, I think it was, where I think John pointed out that it's already in.
Which law is it, do you know?
I think this covers it, but that woman seems like she's having a problem with the limousines and coming and going, so I think
Yeah,
directly labeling that would,
and food trucks are not allowed in Nahant either, right? At least that's what
I
I
don't think
heard
we-
from somewhere on Facebook.
That's not technically.
I don't think that you.
Yeah, food truck's not allowed to just like, we never had an ice cream truck. Because for some reason that we, now it was ice cream proof or something, I'm not sure.
I think if they turned the bells and the sound off, we probably would have been okay with it.
But I don't think anyone can stop a food
Mhm.
truck from going to a residence.
Yeah.
They've been hired by someone,
Okay.
Private property.
Mhm.
right? Right, exactly. It's,
There is a Nahant bylaw that prohibits mobile food trucks from the public way.
Oh, okay.
From parking and vending on a public way. Unless given permission by
Yeah, like
someone in authority.
Mhm.
But and if in the communities where it is allowed, it has to pass the police chief giving permission
Mhm.
because it's a public way. But here we're talking about private property and no, you're not going to prohibit that activity unless the activity gets into the area of being a nuisance.
Mhm.
Falling under one or more of these descriptions of nuisance behavior. So it's covered
Yeah.
already.
So we don't need to have anything.
Beyond that, okay. How about fireworks?
That's
Do we
illegal.
get-
Well,
State.
they already can't have fireworks. That's
Yeah.
the most true.
Okay.
I know we.
He already, yeah.
Police, fire, and on.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty good. It's
Production of noise.
more adjectives than.
Yeah.
Okay.
And keep going.
So we're on that. Burden of proof and cooperation. The burden of proof is placed on the operator to demonstrate that they are operating within the limits of this article. Operators must cooperate with any enforcement or investigation proceedings under this article. I think it gives a great deal of strength to the enforcement officer.
And is this one mentioned anywhere about the record keeping?
No.
So should we?
It's like record
I
keeping.
think it's in there somewhere, but not.
Okay, so we don't have to put it
Yeah, we've
there
already
too.
talked about.
I'm gonna run this by them to make sure that this is enforceable. Maybe it is.
Well, this. Someone else is gonna tell us what we can do
Yeah.
at some point.
That's what we're talking about. At least we're taking a good first step.
Right, exactly. That's where we're at.
Okay. Enforcement, the Inspectional Services Department and Nahant Police Department or their designees shall be responsible for enforcement of this ordinance, including any rule or regulation promulgated hereunder, and shall institute all necessary administrative or legal action to assure compliance. I put that in there because I think it should be shared by the police department. Obviously, you guys aren't always around to step in.
Well, again, if the complaint is fireworks or a
No,
you know, an idling
party.
bus that's been out there, that's gonna be a police department issue anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
I don't think-
certainly the police department, it's not gonna get a free ride here, unfortunately. So,
Shouldn't you ask them first before we put that in?
well. I don't
They
think
handle, they would handle it now anyhow.
They would be.
Yeah, I
Right,
guess.
it'd be a noise complaint.
And quite honestly,
That's the issue. I mean, they would be responding to it, whether we write it down here or not. It's gonna be
Yeah,
a
that's right.
response to that complaint.
and this is going to be handed to somebody who's applying for a permit. I think it's good to have that right out in front, saying. If Wayne isn't in town, it doesn't mean that everybody can do what they want. Somebody else might be able to take the call. Notice of violation, the commissioner or designee shall issue a written notice of any violation of this article to the operator. Said notice shall describe the prohibited condition and order that it be remedied within 30 days of receipt of the notice. I think that's fair.
That's fine.
That's fine. It's not gonna be commissioner, but that's okay.
Okay, so penalties in the general sense, any operator who violates any provision of this ordinance shall be subject to suspension or termination of the certificate to operate a short-term rental and a fine of not more than $300 for each violation. Each day a violation occurs shall be a separate offense. Department of Inspection Services shall notify the Massachusetts Commissioner of the Department of Revenue of all such suspensions or terminations. I don't understand that one. But I don't think it's a bad thing.
I think that would say we're revoking this person's license, so revoke it too, but
Oh, yeah, so.
I don't know if the state would then forward that to Airbnb or the state would say, okay, we'll stop taking taxes from them.
I'm not sure that Nahant can tell the state what to do.
No, I don't.
No, it's just a matter of notice.
I think it's just a notification. I don't think.
Yeah. I don't think
I don't know.
it probably goes in someone's circular file anyways, but
Yeah.
you know, you can say, yes, we notified.
Everybody's been notified.
I don't have an issue with the concept.
Mhm.
Severability, the provisions of this article are severable if any provision, paragraph, sentence, or clause of this article or the application thereof for any person, establishment, or circumstances shall be held invalid, such invalidity,
Invalidity.
invalidity, there it is, shall not affect the provisions or applications of this article. Okay,
That's
Yeah,
standard
standard.
boilerplate.
yep. All right, so. This is essentially it as far as a foundation. I don't know what else we want to consider here.
Do you have the parking in there?
Parking is
Yeah,
in there.
Yeah, it's there.
By specific section.
Yeah, well,
The interesting thing there is that parking, I think for home-based businesses is referenced to just section 6. But in this case, we have bylaws in section 4, section 6, and section 5. So I put them all in.
We leaving out. What do we? We forgetting anything that we want to put in these documents? While we're contemplating, let's throw this open for public input. We have anyone on screen to like to make a comment or ask a question? I see a hand.
Susan Casivio. Yep, there she goes.
Susan?
Yes, hi, good evening. I just had a question. I was the one that had the issue with the food truck, and I was unclear what you were trying to regulate there. Is my understanding correct in that you said if the truck is parked, say, in the driveway, it's okay, but if it's parked on the street, it's not okay?
Can you answer that question, John?
My understanding is that the problem does not occur with the parking of a vehicle in the street, but when the vehicle is a commercial mobile food truck and it is operating in the
Yes.
public. It is operating on public property. Then the town bylaw applies.
Okay.
If permission is granted for this activity, it still must be approved by the chief of police, and that is a standard in any community. If anybody knows otherwise, by all means chime in, but that is my understanding of the town bylaw as it has been shown to me my years in town.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see a square marked iPhone.
Hi, this is Sue Jolie, and I have perhaps a really trivial question here. We're talking about notification to abutters, which I think is a fantastic idea. But as we all know, Nahant has some areas that are very densely populated and some areas that are more thinly populated. Do we have a definition of what an abutter is? Because I'm just thinking in those more densely populated areas that it could be somebody who lives diagonal to you rather than somebody who lives next door to you.
My,
Go ahead, Steve, you want to answer?
Sorry, Rob. I would think, I like the notification of the abutters, but maybe an online. And I don't wanna. Try to create more things that the town is gonna fall short on, but maybe a public online. Access point, because otherwise you give your neighbor a paper and they have a problem 6 months later. Hopefully your neighbor knows you and has your number, but in the instance they don't. They might have lost that paper, so maybe a portal you can go on online, it shows all the registered short-term rentals, click on it. And there's the contact info,
Oh, yeah.
it puts the. Host of the short.
Well, unfortunately, that doesn't answer the question. So yes, there is a definition of abutters. The assessors use it, Board of Appeals uses it to notify the legal abutters of a property when, variances and special permits are applied for. So yes, there is a definition for a butter.
I think there's even
Okay.
on the assessor's page that.
There is.
Yeah, I think you can look, yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, there is, it isn't, it isn't up to an individual to decide who would get the notice. It would come out of the assessor's office, who the abutters are.
Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question on screen? Quiet crowd tonight? Okay, thank you. All right, so what are you looking to do next here?
Maybe add a section of, and again, I don't know if it. It's just something we should leave on. A host, but should we have a section of like a minimum rule requirement? You have to notify your guests, these are the rules, these, your house.
Some kind of a,
Has to consist of at least this, you have to give a parking plan, you have to give,
I thought we had something.
Yes.
Yeah,
Some-
we've had so many different pieces of paper that I'm getting a little confused myself.
Some towns actually have
Information
that.
shall be provided to all short-term rentals, posted in the homeowner adjacent short-term rentals in a manner to be determined. Instructions for disposal of waste, an emergency exit diagram, contact information for the short-term rental operator, or when the operator is not present, contact information for a local available contact designated to respond to all emergencies and problems that may arise during the rental period. Whether from renters, neighbors, or municipal authorities, the certificate of registration for the short-term rental. And that is what we have on the list right now.
I saw some towns issue suggested like regulations or limitations to the guests. I'll see if I can dig this out. I found one of these. So for example, you can say, okay, your minimum requirements are no parties. Quiet hours. I don't know what that's in Nahant, like 7 to 11 p.m. or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I don't know what that is, right? But these are the quiet hours. Don't forget your neighbors are not on vacation like you are, so be quiet. I don't know if we need to do that, but I know some towns do it, then maybe a good idea because some people have comprehensive requirements on their website, like I do. Some people don't. They have some basics.
Oh, okay, on
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah, on individual,
Rental.
so if you are a homeowner who rents short-term rental, these are the minimum requirements for your guests. And you have to pass them to your guests.
Like Airbnb has tried to take a step and just blanket. And said, no part, we have a no parties policy,
Yeah.
but. They're not out checking who's having parties.
No, I understand that.
It's
Yeah.
gone, and that's.
So I guess so
Their website.
So should there be like an additional paragraph in here somewhere that would include this notice that you're talking about that? That the tenants and.
As a,
Or should
as a
it be
guest, you
something
are
like that?
required to comply with these regulations. the
Yeah,
minimum
maybe that's an
regulations.
avenue, we could say no commercial vehicles on the street idling, any vehicle traffic should be, either parked off street or a simple pickup or drop off.
Mhm.
Um,
Because if you think about it, right, so this is for the host, and that's clear.
Mhm.
Now, host is not gonna provide like 6 pages of documents to a guest,
Correct.
right?
I
So if
assume
you
that,
just pick the most important ones that the neighbors will care about, then you can make it as a mandatory regulation, and then anything else that people add to it, that's their choice to add.
So this could look like a section E under procedural requirements, and section E would have an outline of what we would expect to see in
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
you want to put something like that together for us? And we'll just-
Yeah, I'll put something
Plug it in.
together, yeah.
All right.
And what about, I know John had a lot of good points on this, renting any other portion of your house out. Pools, yards for parties, weddings.
I think we should definitely, and I know it's probably gonna seem redundant, but I think somewhere in this list of. Somewhere in this regulation, there should be a list of what's not allowed to be used as
Oh,
a
yeah.
rental.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Not sure. I don't see any reason why we can't put it in, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because if you give someone a loophole, they're gonna jump into it, right? So if we say you can't rent
Tents.
RVs
Yeah.
and campers and tree houses.
I got you.
Maybe
You can't.
Dress
It's all-
can be rented to one party, you know, no subletting of pools,
Mm-hmm,
pool houses, garages.
yeah.
Well, but that wouldn't be a habitable space anyway.
So we enforce the.
However, for purposes other than habitation. Right?
Yeah.
Swimming pool
Yeah, mhm.
or any special purpose pool.
Maybe if we said for any other purposes aside from, you know, those that.
For
Follow the
purposes
standard
other
of a
than,
residential dwelling.
for purposes other than habitation. If you're renting a house that has a pool.
You assuming you're gonna use the pool, or would wanna use the pool, or
Yes.
should be able to use the pool.
And what I'm proposing is that following the example of what Rob had passed out to us. I went under definitions, requirements, number 13. When swimming pool or hot tub or special purpose pool is included in the short-term rental, or when a pool or hot tub is rented alone. Determination must be documented by the Board of Health or its designee of compliance with 105 CMR 435, also known as the minimum standards of swimming pools.
Yeah, I
That
like that.
covers like cleaning them and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
I think it's a
That's
good
great.
idea. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Keeps it short. You're either going to accept the pool or exclude it. If you accept it, then the owner has to abide by this section. In other words, you need a separate inspection and a separate approval that you are complying with the swimming pool code.
As far as having a pool operator's license,
You don't have to have an operator's license. You have to have a permit from the town to operate a swimming pool or hot tub or special purpose pool.
okay, you said hot tub, okay, good.
They want to make sure it's safe, right? People are not gonna drown and.
Well, that's why we tie it to the state swimming pool code.
Can you give me a write-up of what that should say, and I can plug it in, you've got it right there?
I do. Starts here, goes to there.
Fast
Do you need
hands.
this back?
Keep it.
Just take a picture of it. This one?
You know
Well,
what? I'll give you a fresh copy, how's that?
yeah. There you go.
So that's going to go under,
Is it the Carey Street Club? They don't rent out their pool functions, right? Because I just wouldn't want to
Not that I'm aware
put
of
a
it.
restriction on. their
They have a
functions
permit.
now.
Oh.
So
give
they,
us some
I wouldn't want to
licenses.
put something in place that could,
No, they have a permit.
okay.
But I don't believe that they actually rent out the pool. I know they rent the property out
Okay.
for some functions, but
With the pool.
I wouldn't. I don't know of any time that they specifically rented the pool.
Neither do I, however, I do not know of any prohibition.
I think
But they-
that you have to. If they were gonna have a party there, then a member is gonna have to sponsor it at the very least. In order for it to even happen.
That's
So they're
their-
private.
Yeah, so I have a club, yeah.
I do not know of any existing codes that would cover any other potential activities at a short-term rental. We've got the housing code, we've got the swimming pool code. I don't know of any other, as I said, activities that would require attention.
Trash disposal?
Housing code,
Yes, that's covered in here.
no, well, yeah, housing code, yeah.
Just to make sure people, guests aren't instructed to throw your trash bag out on the driveway.
I think he had something about trash now.
You want chapter?
Yeah, it's trash.
Yeah, we mentioned
600 of the housing code.
Yeah, procedural requirements, section A, instructions for disposal of waste courtesy.
Oh, yeah, no.
Operator of the short-term rental is responsible for providing rodent-proof receptacles adequate for the storage of trash prior to final disposal.
Oh, Joe, that's a lot.
Section 600 of the housing code.
All right, can you read that back to me one more time?
The owner / operator of the property is responsible for the proper containment of trash and garbage in rodent-proof containers with tight-fitting lids. And final disposal.
Right, fitting lids. What was the last bit?
And final disposal,
And fine.
which might include dragging the barrels to the curb, but you make the arrangements.
The method is up to them.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's do it.
Section 600 of the house. Just looking to show up.
We know why you're here.
Right, so what else we missing? Yeah.
Okay. Operator of an owner adjacent short-term rental, blah, 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 shall keep accurate books and records and make them available upon request. So what does that mean? Do we want to say exactly what needs to be kept on record?
I don't think we need to define that down to the minutia.
Okay,
Where did you see that?
it is on the third page,
Okay.
Top,
on
number
the
2.
top, number
City
2.
Adjacent short-term rentals shall keep accurate books and records, make them available upon request of inspection service and maintain such books and records for a period of years.
Do the platforms do that, Marie? Do they
Yeah.
keep track of your
Mhm.
history? Yeah.
Yeah,
You need it for tax purposes.
it is not volunteered easily from what I've read by either VRBO.
Well, it's not gonna hurt to have it in there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
because of privacy law.
I understand that, which puts the onus on us. If we want it, we gotta get it on our.
Yeah, you gotta issue proper notice and proper request, and then you're gonna get it as the town.
So we good with that?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't leave that alone.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
This was Cambridge. you said?
It's Cambridge, but I obviously I
Retro.
took something over from Newton on one of those. I like their language better. Yeah.
Yeah, this is-
Under enforcement, that one came from Newton.
So, okay, go on page 2, section 7. The mandated liability insurance.
Okay.
So I would say Short-term rental operators shall maintain the state liability insurance. Unless it's maintained by a hosting platform. So the way it works now is that if the hosting platform has it, like Airbnb, Vrbo, the homeowner doesn't need it. So do we want to say something like that, or do we just want to leave it alone?
I think leave it. I think maintaining it as having coverage. Doesn't
Okay.
stipulate who's buying it as long as the coverage is in place.
Yeah, okay.
I agree.
Did we say anything about people having been current on their tax payments before they get license issued?
That's already in our local bylaws. You can't get a building permit if you owe tax.
I think it's in here too.
You can't, there's a lot of things you can't have. If you own one.
Oh, okay.
In fact, in Marblehead, if you go to the building department for a permit, they hand you a piece of paper and you walk down the hallway to the treasurer's office and they stamp it. It says, okay, you know, and then you bring it back to the building department, pick up your permit. It gets verified before you can't, they won't give you the permit unless it gets stamped down the hallway.
Is that to verify that you don't have outstanding?
Yeah, make sure you don't.
Yeah,
Exactly. I mean, we just. And every once in a while, I might get a little note handed to me that. You know, someone's don't issue permits to this house. It's so minor and so little, I don't usually pay much attention to it. You know, there is a provision in our local. General, I'm not gonna say it's probably a general bylaw, I'm not even sure where it is exactly, but it's there.
Yeah, I think this covers everything we
I
talked
think we're
about.
looking good
Yeah,
here.
we're looking good.
Thanks for doing this, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Is there anyone else up? I see a hand going up. Cora, Long?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just a clarification on the trash recycling fees. Are you saying that there are no extra costs to the Airbnb? They pay the same fee for a single family house?
I would see, well, certainly you at the moment, if that would be the case.
Okay, and that would be the same for the multifamily?
I didn't understand the question.
Should that be the same?
Okay,
for-
so
Oh,
you have a
well, the multifamily already pays more, so
right, so you got 2 units, they pay double what the single family pay. You got
I'm
4
not sure
units-
exactly what the rate is, but yes, they pay more, that much I know.
Okay, so you got a single family house that's paying, you know, the rate of, I think it's 350, but they have, they rent out to Airbnb and they have 7 to 10 weddings a year and they have a lot of trash, but they pay the same fee as a single family house that do not rent out to Airbnb. Is that my understanding?
That would be correct.
It would be per dwelling unit, and yeah.
We have, let's put it this way, this body has no authority to decide who should pay what for trash, so.
But I.
That would be up to the Board of Selectmen or whoever it is that decides the trash.
But
Mr.
at the
Chair, I
same
can
time,
help.
like, when we made a decision that you can only rent legal bedrooms in your house. So let's say you have three bedrooms in a house and you rent one as Airbnb. Then it is assumed when the fee for trash is calculated. That would be already factored in, so you can have, 6 kids in that house. And then you can have 2 adults and 1 bedroom rented to
I
Airbnb.
think she brings up a good point, though. We kind of cover it in the trash, but I think if you have let's say a single family house, you rent it as a short-term
Yeah.
rental. Our trash laws, whatever they are, give you up to 2 barrels. Now, if your guests are generating more trash than that, I think Cora is absolutely right. You shouldn't have the right to say, oh, well, sorry, I have a short-term rental, so I'm gonna put 6 barrels out. Maybe
Well,
if it's a
again,
violation, they could then pay double and they could get 2 more barrels. And if that doesn't suffice, they get,
and I can't. tell you how you would do that. It wouldn't be up to us. That's what I'm
Maybe
trying
a
to say.
violation for trash disposal, but I
I
think if
can,
you.
I can pipe in, Mr. Chair. if you like.
Go ahead. Sure, please,
So,
Dan.
yeah, there are commercial rates for trash and there are residential rates for trash. It's done by per dwelling unit, which is basically like an apartment or even a house for that matter. This, I believe it's within this committee's discretion to develop a draft bylaw that says if you are running an Airbnb or short-term rental, then you shall be classified as a commercial property for the purposes of trash fees. I think that's within your realm of responsibility.
Is commercial a higher rate than residential?
Yes, it is, because
Okay.
the idea is that it generates more trash, like, Nahant convenience generates more trash than, my apartment, for example.
But what constitutes commercial trash rate in Nahant? Is it for restaurants? Is it for the wedding venues? Is it for?
It's anything
like-
commercial, anything commercial.
Yeah.
It's Enzo's Garage, it's Seaside Pizza, it's.
And
Trot
long-term
Ties.
rentals also pay higher rate?
I don't think so. I don't think it's been that developed
No,
yet.
no.
I think.
Yeah,
Absolutely
so
not.
that should really be no different, because I can tell you for my house, we have one trash can and we have for the rental. And at any given time.
Oh, yeah,
there's
yeah.
people in the
Long-term
house,
rentals, yeah.
right?
Wayne's right. Long-term rentals don't make a difference. That's not, no, that's a one dwelling. That's not commercial. No.
Right,
And guys, don't confuse recycling from trash. I heard Steve say that there's a limit on trash. There's not. There's a limit on recycling. That's the 2 barrels you have in front of your two blue ones. And that's sort of a test case for moving into the trash part of it, to see if we're going to do the same thing next year with trash, where you can only have a certain number of barrels for trash. So it's in the works, but the limitation is only on recycling at the moment.
There's no limit. You could put 5 barrels out right now in a single family house?
Of trash,
Yes.
I believe that's true, but that's being
Wow.
looked at. But let me say that, and also say though, you can't bring trash from your business and put it in front of your house. That's a problem. Which
Okay,
we have
and
faced.
Does the town pay, like, let's say everybody put 5 barrels out next week?
Yeah,
Would the town pay more money, or do we have a
Yes.
fixed?
absolutely.
No,
The pound,
you
Oh,
pay-
so yeah, absolutely. Then
yeah,
these
because we
should
pay by the tonnage.
Pay the tipping fee at the dump.
Yeah, Wayne would know all about that.
Part of the way the trash pickup is done is we pay in a contract amount for the guy to go around and pick up the trash.
Oh,
And then we pay the tipping fee.
oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all, I mean, they bid the contract for a year. The trash haulers do.
Right.
They bid the contract,
We have a 3-year
Pardon me?
contract. We have a 3-year contract.
3-year contract.
Yeah.
That surprises me.
Yeah.
But the bid is the bid, right, Dan? I mean, it's like they can't go a year into it and say, hey, Nahant is generating 3 times as much trash as we would have
Yeah.
anticipated.
No, there's a gamble. Yeah, you both take a gamble, and that's
Okay,
how
so
negotiations are.
it's a set rate. It's not based on, once they agree to it, that's the rate for the 3 years.
No, Wayne is right. There's like a base fee, then there's a fee based
Oh,
on
okay.
how much
To be
weight.
added on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Contract is to collect the trash
Right.
and then we pay for its disposal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we encourage recycling, we encourage black earth, things like that to reduce that weight.
Hmm?
never knew that. That's cool. Oh, cool.
Okay, so that was my question, and I just want to know if there's something that could be put in there as far as for the Airbnbs for extra fee for extra garbage cans. I don't know, I just don't want it, the extra cost going back to the general, everyday resident when the Airbnb person is putting out 10 trash cans and the senior citizen that's one in the house is putting out just one. But thank you for your time, and that was my question.
Okay, thank you. Chris Whitlock? Chris?
Thank you. Chris Whitlock, 11 Lafayette Terrace, resident for 25 years. So we have an Airbnb unit, and I would have to say that in the 2.5 years we've been operating, our guests, when they're here, they usually go out to eat. So they generate less trash than when my kids come to visit. So again, I don't want to solve a problem that actually doesn't exist. So, and again, I think I'm happy to pay any fees that that realistically get generated by having guests, but again, I think there's a lot of speculation on what actually happens at Airbnbs. So that's just my observation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Susan?
Yes, hi. I try to attend all the meetings here, and the planning board is also having short-term rental meetings, so I try to attend those as well. I'm just trying to make sure I have the correct understanding.
What's your address?
I'm sorry.
Address.
Please.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 65 Mayolis Road. I just want to make sure I have the correct understanding on what you're regulating here. Are you saying, are you making any stipulation for non-owner occupied rentals versus owner adjacent or owner occupied rentals?
Not at this time.
With regard to trash or?
No, just in general, just in
Haven't made
general.
a decision on
Not
it.
yet.
Not at this time, yeah. I agree.
It hasn't been decided at this time.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
all right, just making sure I'm up to speed. Thank you.
Cora, your hand is up. Do you have another question?
Sorry, no, I just need to figure out how to put my hand down.
Okay, okay. Anyone else with a question or a comment?
Yeah, let me make a comment on the trash piece of it. So
Thank you.
I agree with the homeowner who has short-term rental. I've had short-term rental for over 5 years now, maybe longer. We never had more than one trash can of trash. People mostly go out. The room is not occupied at 100% occupancy. So really, if you really think about the trash and forget about somebody doing events, right? That's actually going to be addressed by the regulations. There should be no folks doing commercial events and commercial catering activities, right? So from my perspective, and that's my opinion, my experience, the short-term rental doesn't really create more trash because people are not staying there every day. You don't have 100% occupancy, and most of the time people actually eat out. So again, I've never had more than one trash can.
Yeah, I personally, my personal thought on it is, I don't think we need to address the trash, certainly at this point in time. If the Board of Health thinks that the trash becomes an issue, they're the body that sets the rates for trash. If they want to develop a different rate for Airbnb situations, short-term rentals, well, I would leave it up to them to do that. I don't think it's something that we need to do at this point in time.
We all obviously,
We're diving into details here that I don't think we need to be worried about.
it's hard to argue with either side on that one. We haven't been able to measure it.
That's
Well,
right.
that's just it. Is it gonna be a situation where someone generates a bunch of trash that might or not otherwise be generated at that residence? Absolutely, I'm sure that there is gonna be one, but there also could be, for every 3 weekends that someone's there, there's gonna be 2 or 3 weekends that there isn't any. So it'll probably all evens out over the course of the year, just maybe in one particular week, there's a little more trash.
And we're not gonna get into the money designation. I know it's not the principle of us, but we could factor in to the annual fee. Maybe $100 from every one of these annual fees goes towards trash, or
Yeah.
let's not lose sight, there's X amount of dollars in tax revenue.
Again, I just think it's an issue that we don't need it. That we don't need to get involved in this committee.
That would be an impact fee, which we're allowed to assess at some point.
Okay, what other pressing issues do we need to get through? Or are we very comfortable here at 5 minutes past 8 to say, let's fine tune this, come back in 2 weeks and finish it up?
All right.
Do you want me to do anything, Rob? I feel like everything's on you.
Well, can you email me the Word document and I'll just add the recursions to it? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so let's make sure we understand when we're gonna meet next. 2 weeks is.
2 weeks is. November 8th.
Yeah. perfect.
Sound good
Got
to
it.
everybody?
Got it in.
Bob?
We're good.
Rob, looking.
Isn't that election day?
November.
November 8th works for me.
Guys,
Okay,
isn't this election day?
November 8th election day.
Something is on my calendar.
You probably, yeah,
Election day, you're right.
so we pull it off to the following Tuesday.
Let's vote the regulations like be done.
No. I don't personally have a problem with the concept, but
November.
do you want to just wait?
So,
go to it?
or do you wanna do it?
Parking could be,
Might be an issue. All right, so let's push it back at least to the 15th.
Or do you wanna do it the 9th?
No, let's keep the Tuesdays
15th,
going
okay.
because I'm not sure what happens to this one on Wednesday.
okay, so now it's gonna be the November 15th.
Yeah.
Okay,
November
Sound
fifteenth.
good?
Everybody open.
All right, anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Anyone's vote in favor? Meeting adjourned at 8:00.
6. All right, guys, good night.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Dan.
Ted.
Good night.
Meeting, productive meeting.
Interesting.
Get through this.
Isn't it interesting, the less productive meetings take longer, right?